Have you ever wondered if your own home, the place where you seek refuge and comfort, could be harboring hidden dangers that affect not just your physical well-being, but your spiritual and financial health as well? What if Pope John Paul II had actually warned us about these invisible threats decades ago, but we simply weren't paying attention? Today I'm going to reveal these hidden dangers and show you how the wisdom of John Paul II can help protect you and your loved ones. Many of us consider our homes to be sanctuaries, places of safety and peace. But what if I told you that right now in your living room, kitchen or bedroom, there might be subtle influences slowly draining your energy, affecting your health, and even impacting your financial stability? These aren't ghosts or supernatural entities. They're very real, and Pope John Paul II spoke about them with remarkable foresight. Before we dive deeper, I want to share a story about Maria, a 67-year-old widow who lived alone in her small apartment. Maria had always been a woman of faith, attending Mass regularly and praying daily. But over the years, she began to notice changes in herself. She felt constantly tired, suffered from unexplained headaches, and despite her modest pension, seemed to be struggling financially more than she should. Her children suggested it might be age or loneliness, but Maria felt there was something more, something in her environment that was affecting her. Hey friends, if you're finding this information valuable, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We'd love to hear where you're watching from and what challenges you're facing in your own homes. Your comments help us create content that truly serves you, and your support allows us to continue sharing these important messages with others who might need them. Now, let's get back to Maria's story and discover what she found in her home. Maria's journey of discovery began after hearing a sermon that referenced Pope John Paul II's teachings on the ecology of the human person, the idea that our physical environment profoundly impacts our spiritual and material well-being. Intrigued, she began researching and slowly making changes to her living space. What happened next surprised even her skeptical children. Many of us don't realize that Pope John Paul II was remarkably forward-thinking when it came to the relationship between our environment and our overall wellness. In his 1990 message for the World Day of Peace, he spoke about the ecological crisis and its moral dimension, emphasizing that our surroundings affect not just our physical health, but our spiritual lives as well. While he was primarily addressing global environmental concerns, his wisdom applies perfectly to our homes, the environments we can actually control. The first hidden danger that John Paul II indirectly warned about relates to the clutter in our homes. He often spoke about the dangers of materialism and consumerism, how the accumulation of possessions can become a spiritual burden. Man is more precious for what he is than for what he has, he famously said. This wisdom has profound implications for our living spaces. When Maria began examining her apartment with new eyes, she realized she had spent decades accumulating items that no longer served any purpose. Closets full of unused clothes, shelves overflowing with unread books, and drawers stuffed with papers she'd never look at again. This physical clutter was creating mental clutter, making it difficult for her to find peace in her own home. Studies have confirmed what John Paul II intuitively understood, that physical clutter in our homes increases cortisol, the stress hormone levels in our bodies. This constant state of low-grade stress weakens our immune system, disrupts sleep patterns, and can lead to chronic health issues like the headaches Maria experienced. But the impact doesn't stop there. This same clutter was affecting Maria's financial well-being in ways she hadn't recognized. She would buy duplicates of items because she couldn't find the original in her cluttered home. She paid bills late because they got lost in piles of mail, incurring unnecessary late fees. The disorder in her physical space was creating disorder in her financial life, exactly the kind of interconnection that John Paul II spoke about when he talked about the integral development of the human person. Another hidden danger lurking in many homes relates to the quality of light. John Paul II often used light as a metaphor for divine truth and guidance. In his encyclical Veritatis Splendor, he wrote about the splendor of truth that illuminates our moral path. While he was speaking metaphorically, modern science has confirmed that proper lighting in our homes is essential not just for physical health, but for mental and spiritual well-being too. Maria's apartment had poor lighting, dark corners, harsh, fluorescent bulbs, and windows partly blocked by heavy drapes and overgrown shrubs outside. She didn't realize that this lack of natural light was likely contributing to her fatigue and even mild depression. Research has shown that inadequate exposure to natural light disrupts our circadian rhythms, decreases vitamin D production, and can lead to seasonal affective disorder. When Maria began allowing more natural light into her home by trimming the shrubs, replacing heavy drapes with lighter curtains, and using full-spectrum light bulbs in dark areas, she noticed an almost immediate improvement in her energy levels and mood. This simple change didn't cost much money, but had profound effects on her well-being. Water quality is another hidden danger that John Paul II indirectly addressed when he spoke about the sacredness of creation and our responsibility to be stewards of natural resources. In his writings, he emphasized that water is not just a commodity, but a gift from God that sustains all life. Yet many of us unknowingly consume and bathe in water containing contaminants that can affect our health. Maria learned that her older apartment building had copper pipes that could be leaching small amounts of metal into her drinking water. She invested in a simple water filter, not an expensive solution, but one that potentially prevented long-term health issues that would have been costly to address later. This is the kind of prudent stewardship that Pope John Paul II advocated, caring for our health through mindful attention to the resources we consume. Perhaps the most insidious hidden danger in our homes is one that John Paul II was particularly prophetic about: the invasion of media and technology that can disrupt our inner peace and spiritual focus. Long before smartphones and social media, he warned about the potential for mass media to promote values contrary to human dignity and spiritual growth. In Maria's case, she had developed the habit of leaving her television on constantly for background noise and company. What she didn't realize was how this continuous stream of news, advertisements, and entertainment was affecting her mental state, her purchasing decisions, and even her sleep quality. The images of luxury items and must-have products subtly influenced her to make unnecessary purchases, straining her limited budget. The constant barrage of negative news increased her anxiety, and the blue light from the screen, especially in the evening hours, disrupted her sleep patterns. Pope John Paul II understood this danger decades ago. In his 1991 encyclical Centesimus Annus, he cautioned about an excessive promotion of purely utilitarian values through mass media that could lead to consumerism and a neglect of spiritual development. He was remarkably prescient about how media could shape our values and behaviors in ways contrary to our true well-being. When Maria began implementing a media fast in the evenings, turning off her television 2 hours before bedtime, and instead reading spiritual texts or simply sitting in contemplative silence, she noticed significant improvements in her sleep quality. Better sleep led to more energy during the day, which enabled her to be more active and further improved her health. She also found herself making fewer impulse purchases as she was less exposed to advertising. This simple change benefited her, spiritually, physically, and financially, exactly the kind of holistic approach to human flourishing that John Paul II advocated. Another hidden danger in our homes that connects to Pope John Paul II's teachings is the quality of the air we breathe. While he spoke extensively about environmental stewardship on a global scale, his principles apply perfectly to the microenvironment of our homes. Modern buildings are increasingly airtight for energy efficiency, which can trap pollutants inside and create what experts call sick building syndrome. Maria discovered that her apartment contained several sources of indoor air pollution: chemical cleaners under her sink, air fresheners that released volatile organic compounds, and even her old carpet that had been trapping dust and allergens. For years, these pollutants were likely contributing to her headaches and fatigue. By switching to natural cleaning products, removing artificial air fresheners, and regularly airing out her apartment, Maria significantly improved her indoor air quality. She even added several houseplants, which not only beautified her space but also helped filter the air naturally. Pope John Paul II would have approved of this approach, using natural solutions to create a healthier environment while practicing responsible stewardship of resources. These changes to her air quality had financial benefits too. Natural? Cleaning solutions like vinegar and baking soda cost a fraction of commercial cleaning products. And by addressing the root causes of her health issues, Maria potentially avoided costly medical treatments down the road. This exemplifies the prudent resource management that John Paul II advocated throughout his teachings. Perhaps one of the most overlooked dangers in our homes is noise pollution. John Paul II frequently spoke about the importance of silence for spiritual growth. In a 1994 letter, he wrote about the value of silence as a space where we can hear the voice of God and reflect on our lives. Yet many of us live in homes filled with constant noise, from appliances, electronics, traffic outside, and our own activities. Maria realized that her apartment was never truly quiet. If the television wasn't on, then the refrigerator was humming. Traffic was passing by her window, or neighbors could be heard through the walls. She began creating intentional periods of silence in her day, using earplugs when necessary, and addressing sources of noise she could control, like putting rubber pads under vibrating appliances and using draft stoppers to block noise coming under her door. The resulting periods of quiet allowed her to pray more deeply, think more clearly, and experience a level of peace that had been missing from her life. John Paul II would have recognized this as creating space for spiritual communion, a clearing away of distractions to focus on what truly matters. Electromagnetic fields, EMFs, represent another potential hidden danger in our homes that connects to John Paul II's broader teachings about technology. While the Pope couldn't have known the extent to which wireless devices would proliferate in our homes, he did caution about uncritical acceptance of technological progress without considering its impacts on human dignity and well-being. Maria learned that her bedroom contained multiple sources of EMFs, her cell phone charging on her nightstand, a wireless router nearby, and even her electric alarm clock placed close to her head. While the science on EMFs is still developing, many health experts recommend a precautionary approach, especially in sleeping areas, where we spend about a third of our lives. By moving electronic devices away from her bed, turning off her Wi-Fi router at night, and keeping her cell phone in another room while sleeping, Maria created a more natural electromagnetic environment for rest and recovery. These changes cost her nothing but potentially contributed to her improved sleep and overall health. Our homes can also harbor hidden financial dangers that connect to John Paul II's teachings on stewardship and prudence. He frequently emphasized responsible management of resources as part of our moral obligations. Yet many homes literally leak money through energy inefficiency, a problem that affects both our financial well-being and the environment. When Maria had an energy audit done on her apartment, she discovered numerous ways her home was wasting: electricity and heating fuel, gaps around windows and doors, an inefficient refrigerator, incandescent light bulbs, and electronic devices constantly drawing phantom power even when not in use. Addressing these issues required some initial investment, but quickly paid for itself in lower utility bills. John Paul II's concept of human ecology extended to creating environments that support human flourishing in all dimensions: spiritual, physical, and material. Energy efficiency represents a perfect example of this integrated approach, caring for creation while also practicing financial prudence. Toxic relationships can also be a hidden danger in our homes, though they're not physical substances or environmental factors. John Paul II wrote extensively about the importance of human relationships founded on mutual respect and love. In his letter to families, he emphasized that the home should be a place where people experience communion of persons, relationships that build up rather than tear down. Maria realized that some of the people she regularly invited into her home left her feeling drained, anxious, or even doubting her faith. While she understood the Christian call to love everyone, she began to set healthy boundaries around who she allowed into her intimate living space. She became more intentional about surrounding herself with people who shared her values and supported her spiritual growth. This careful curation of relationships extended to media figures as well. She became more discerning about which television personalities, authors, and public figures she allowed to influence her thinking through their presence in her home via media. John Paul II had warned about the negative influence of certain media content on personal values and family life, advice that proved valuable for Maria. The foods we bring into our homes represent another potential hidden danger that connects to John Paul II's teachings about caring for our bodies as temples of the Holy Spirit. While he didn't leave specific dietary guidelines, his broader teachings on respecting the dignity of the human person certainly extend to how we nourish ourselves. Maria discovered that her kitchen contained numerous processed foods high in sugar, refined carbohydrates, and artificial ingredients, products marketed as convenient and tasty, but potentially harmful to her long-term health. She began reading labels more carefully and gradually shifted toward whole natural foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. This dietary change aligned perfectly with the principles John Paul II advocated when he spoke about responsible stewardship of our bodies and resources. He understood that the human person is an integrated whole, physical, mental, and spiritual dimensions all interconnected. By choosing foods that truly nourished her body, rather than just satisfying immediate cravings, Maria was practicing a form of physical stewardship that had spiritual dimensions. These better food choices also had financial benefits. While some whole foods cost more up front, Maria found that they were more satisfying, which meant she ate less overall. And by cooking simple meals at home rather than relying on expensive, processed options, she actually reduced her grocery bill. Most importantly, she was investing in her long-term health, potentially avoiding costly medical interventions down the road, exactly the kind of prudent resource management that John Paul II advocated. Another hidden danger in many homes relates to toxic chemicals in everyday products. John Paul II often spoke about respecting the natural order and being cautious about manipulating nature in ways that could harm human dignity or health. While he was primarily addressing larger bioethical issues, his principle of caution applies perfectly to the thousands of synthetic chemicals we unknowingly bring into our homes. Maria was surprised to learn that her personal care products, shampoo, lotion, makeup, and perfume, contained ingredients linked to hormone disruption and other health concerns. Her household cleaners released volatile organic compounds that could irritate her lungs and even affect her neurological function. Even her furniture and carpets had been treated with flame retardants and stain repellents that could gradually off-gas into her living space. Guided by John Paul II's emphasis on natural law and respecting the inherent wisdom of creation, Maria began replacing these products with simpler, more natural alternatives. She found that olive oil worked wonderfully as a moisturizer. Vinegar and baking soda could clean most surfaces in her home. And when she did need to purchase products, she chose ones with transparent ingredient lists and minimal synthetic additives. These changes not only reduced her exposure to potentially harmful chemicals, but also simplified her life and saved money. Instead of dozens of specialized cleaning products, she now used just a few versatile ingredients. Instead of expensive beauty products promising miraculous results, she embraced simpler routines that supported her natural aging process with dignity, a value John Paul II emphasized throughout his teachings on the later stages of life. Ergonomics, the design of our living and working spaces, represents another hidden danger that connects to John Paul II's teachings about the dignity of the human person. He frequently spoke about how work environments should respect human needs and limitations, rather than forcing people to adapt to unhealthy conditions. This principle applies equally to our home environments. Maria had never given much thought to how her furniture and daily activities might be affecting her physical health. Her favorite chair provided poor back support, her computer setup caused her to hunch forward, and even her kitchen counters were at a height that required her to stoop slightly while preparing meals. These seemingly minor issues were cumulatively creating strain on her body. With some simple adjustments, a lumbar pillow for her chair, raising her computer monitor to eye level, and using a stool to elevate her work when chopping vegetables, Maria significantly reduced her daily physical strain. John Paul II would have recognized this as honoring the body God gave her, acknowledging its design and limitations rather than forcing it into uncomfortable positions. These ergonomic improvements had financial implications too. By preventing repetitive strain injuries and postural problems, Maria potentially avoided physical therapy costs and pain medications. This kind of preventive approach to health aligns perfectly with John Paul II's emphasis on prudence and responsible stewardship. Perhaps the most profound hidden danger in our homes, one that John Paul II warned about repeatedly, is spiritual clutter. Beyond physical objects, many of us allow our homes to fill with influences that subtly undermine our faith and values. Books, music, artwork, or entertainment that promotes materialistic, hedonistic, or nihilistic worldviews. Maria began examining the media and objects in her home through the lens of John Paul II's teachings on the culture of life versus the culture of death. She realized that some of the novels on her shelves, shows in her viewing queue, and even artwork on her walls subtly promoted values contrary to her faith. They weren't overtly immoral, but they gradually influenced her thinking in ways that led her away from spiritual priorities. By thoughtfully curating the cultural influences in her home, choosing books, music, art, and entertainment that affirmed life, dignity, truth, and beauty, Maria created an environment that supported, rather than undermined, her spiritual growth. John Paul II would have recognized this as creating a domestic church, a home that serves as a sanctuary for faith development. The final hidden danger Maria discovered in her home was perhaps the most subtle but important of all: the absence of sacred space. John Paul II frequently emphasized the importance of prayer and contemplation in the spiritual life, yet many homes lack a dedicated space for this essential practice. Maria's apartment contained no visual reminders of her faith, no comfortable place set aside for prayer, no symbols to elevate her thoughts toward the transcendent. Her living environment was entirely secular and practical, with no acknowledgement of the spiritual dimension of life that John Paul II considered most essential. By creating a simple prayer corner, a comfortable chair, a small table with a Bible, a candle, and a meaningful icon, Maria established a visible reminder of the spiritual priorities that John Paul II emphasized throughout his pontificate. This sacred space became an anchor for her daily prayer routine and a silent witness to visitors about her values and beliefs. As Maria implemented these changes over several months, the transformation in her life was remarkable. Her health improved as she removed environmental toxins, improved her diet, created better sleeping conditions, and reduced physical strain. Her financial situation stabilized as she eliminated unnecessary purchases, reduced utility costs, and prevented health expenses. And most importantly, her spiritual life deepened as she created space for silence, prayer, and meaningful relationships. What's particularly beautiful about Maria's story is how these dimensions of improvement reinforced each other, exactly the kind of integrated human development that John Paul II envisioned. Better health gave her more energy for prayer and service. Financial stability reduced stress and created space for generosity, and spiritual growth guided her toward wiser choices about health and resources. Maria's journey demonstrates that by addressing the hidden dangers in our homes through the wisdom of John Paul II's teachings, we can experience transformation in every aspect of our lives. His integrated vision of the human person as a unified being with physical, psychological, social, and spiritual dimensions provides the perfect framework for creating truly healthy home environments. So, what hidden dangers might be lurking in your home? And how might the wisdom of John Paul II guide you toward addressing them? The journey begins with awareness, looking at your living space with new eyes and asking how each element affects your overall well-being. Start with one small area, perhaps your bedroom, since quality sleep affects everything else. Consider the air quality, lighting, electromagnetic fields, and noise level. Remove anything that disrupts peace or sleep. Add elements that promote rest and reflection. This single change could begin a transformation similar to Maria's. Or examine the products you use daily on your body and in your home. Read labels carefully, Research ingredients you don't recognize. Consider simpler, more natural alternatives. This step alone could significantly reduce your exposure to harmful chemicals while saving money and benefiting the environment. Perhaps most importantly, create some form of sacred space in your home, even if it's just a corner with a meaningful religious image, a candle, and a prayer book. This visible reminder of spiritual priorities can help reorient your entire household toward what John Paul II called the splendor of truth and authentic human flourishing. Remember that your home is not just a physical structure, it's the environment that shapes your daily experience, influences your health, affects your financial decisions, and either supports or hinders your spiritual growth. By addressing the hidden dangers in this environment through the wisdom of John Paul II, you can create a living space that truly nurtures every dimension of your humanity. As we conclude this exploration of hidden dangers in our homes, I invite you to share in the comments which of these areas resonates most with you. Is it the physical clutter, the media influences, the toxic chemicals, or perhaps the lack of sacred space? Your insights might help others on their journey toward creating healthier, more harmonious homes. Thank you for joining me today on this journey through the wisdom of John Paul II as it applies to our homes. Until next time, may your living space become a true sanctuary for body, mind, and spirit, free from hidden dangers and full of life-giving influences.